Hello, my name is Demis Rizki Ramadan. I am a student in the Information Studies program, student number 22,311,079. In this video, I will explain about business continuity audit and disaster recovery. In today's business world, where technology drives almost every operation, disruptions can happen at any moment, from system failures and cyber attacks to natural disasters and human errors. The question is, how can an organization ensure that it keeps running even during a crisis? This is where business continuity audit and disaster recovery become essential. In this video, we'll explore the concepts, objectives, processes, and best practices to ensure business survival in the face of the worst scenarios. Business continuity is an organization's ability to continue operating at a minimum acceptable level after a disruption. The focus is on minimizing downtime and maintaining essential services. Disaster recovery is a component of business continuity that focuses on restoring IT systems, data, and infrastructure after a disruption. In simple terms, business continuity covers the entire business operation, while disaster recovery focuses specifically on IT and data restoration. Business continuity audit is the process of assessing the organization's plans, procedures, and readiness to maintain business operations and recover from disasters. This audit ensures that existing strategies are effective, aligned with standards, and executable when needed. The main goals of business continuity audit and disaster recovery are to identify risks that can disrupt business operations, evaluate organizational readiness for disaster scenarios, ensure compliance with standards or regulations such as ISO 22301 or NIST SP 800-34, and minimize financial and reputational impacts caused by downtime. The benefits include building customer and stakeholder trust, reducing potential business losses, improving coordination between teams during emergencies, and enabling faster and more structured recovery. Several critical components form the foundation of business continuity and disaster recovery. First, the business impact analysis, or BIA, identifies critical processes and assesses the impact if they are disrupted, while determining recovery time objective, RTO, and recovery point objective, RPO. Second, risk assessment identifies internal and external threats, and evaluates their likelihood and potential impact. Third, the disaster recovery plan, or DRP, provides strategies for restoring IT infrastructure along with data backup and restoration procedures. Fourth, the business continuity plan, or BCP, outlines steps to maintain minimum service levels and details emergency communication procedures. Finally, testing and maintenance involve conducting regular drills and updating documentation as the business or technology changes. Business continuity, often referred to as BC, is the overall plan and set of strategies designed to keep a business running during and after a disruption. The key focus here is not just fixing what's broken, but ensuring that essential business functions continue, even under pressure. Imagine it as a safety net that catches the business when things go wrong. For example, if your main office building becomes unusable due to a fire, business continuity might mean shifting operations to a secondary site, enabling staff to work remotely, or using pre-arranged partnerships with vendors to keep supply chains moving. The goal is simple but crucial: keep the wheels of the business turning, no matter what. Disaster recovery, or DR, is closely related but much more specific. It focuses on the restoration of IT systems, infrastructure, and data after a disruption. While business continuity is about keeping the ship afloat, disaster recovery is about repairing, or replacing, the ship's engine so it can keep moving. DR plans include detailed procedures for restoring servers, recovering lost data, switching to backup systems, or moving operations to a backup data center. The difference between BC and DR is essential to understand. BC is proactive and broad, ensuring the business as a whole survives. DR is reactive and technical, targeting the restoration of the tools the business depends on. Both are essential, and both must work hand in hand. Why do these concepts matter so much? Let's break it down. First, financial loss. Every hour of downtime costs money, sometimes thousands, even millions, depending on the size of the company. In industries like finance or e-commerce, a single hour offline can be catastrophic. Second, reputation damage. Customers have little patience in the digital era. If your systems fail and they can't get what they need, they might simply move to a competitor. Rebuilding that lost trust can take years. Third, regulatory compliance. Many industries, from healthcare to banking, are legally required to have business continuity and disaster recovery plans in place. Failure to comply can result not just in fines, but in losing the license to operate. And fourth, data security. Data is the lifeblood of modern business. Losing it, or allowing it to be stolen, can have devastating consequences. BC and DR strategies ensure that even in the face of disaster, your critical data remains protected and recoverable. Here's a real-world example. In 2012, Hurricane Sandy hit the US East Coast. Many companies in the New York area were shut down for weeks. But one large financial firm was able to resume operations within 48 hours because they had a fully tested BC and DR plan, including a backup data center hundreds of miles away. While competitors were still scrambling, they were already serving clients and winning new business in the process. So how do we make sure a BC plan actually works? This is where the business continuity audit comes in. A business continuity audit is a structured, systematic review that assesses whether your BC plan is effective, up to date, and aligned with industry best practices and regulations. It's not enough to have a plan written down somewhere. It must be tested, reviewed, and validated regularly. The purpose of the audit is threefold: to identify risks that could disrupt operations, to evaluate the readiness of the organization to respond, and to ensure that all resources, from staff to technology, are prepared for any scenario. The scope of a BC audit is broad. It looks at governance and policies to ensure there's a clear framework in place. It reviews the risk assessment process to check if potential threats have been identified and ranked. It examines the business impact analysis, which determines how different types of disruptions affect the organization and which functions are most critical. It evaluates recovery strategies. Are they realistic, practical, and financially viable? And finally, it checks the testing and maintenance schedule to ensure the plan isn't just theoretical. The process of conducting a BC audit typically begins with planning, defining the objectives, scope, and team members. Next is data collection, which may involve interviews with department heads, reviewing documentation, and observing current processes. After that comes evaluation and simulation testing, running through hypothetical scenarios to see how the plan works under pressure. Finally, there's reporting, documenting findings, listing recommendations, and prioritizing improvements. The last step, which is often overlooked, is follow-up, making sure those improvements are actually implemented. Now let's move into disaster recovery planning, the technical side of the equation. A strong DR plan begins with an inventory of all systems, applications, and data. You need to know exactly what you have before you can plan how to recover it. Next, you define your recovery time objective or RTO, the maximum acceptable downtime before serious damage occurs, and your recovery point objective or RPO, the maximum amount of data you can afford to lose. Backup strategies are at the heart of DR planning. These could include cloud backups, off-site storage, or replication to a secondary data center. The DR plan must also outline the step-by-step procedures for restoring systems in different disaster scenarios, whether that's a cyber attack, hardware failure, natural disaster, or even human error. Another critical element is choosing the right type of recovery site. A hot site is fully operational and ready to take over immediately. A warm site has the infrastructure in place but requires some setup before it can go live. A cold site is an empty space, essentially a shell, where equipment must be installed before operations can resume. Each has its pros and cons in terms of cost, speed, and complexity. The development of a DR plan follows a logical sequence. Start with a risk analysis, identify and prioritize critical systems, create detailed technical recovery procedures, and then test those procedures regularly. Testing isn't optional. It's the only way to be sure the plan will work when you need it most. While BC and DR are distinct, they must be integrated to be effective. Think of business continuity as the overall survival strategy for the business, and disaster recovery as one of its core components, the part that ensures the technology backbone is restored quickly. If you have BC without DR, you may have plans to keep operations going, but you'll struggle without the technical infrastructure. If you have DR without BC, you can restore your systems, but without a broader strategy, you may still fail to deliver products or services to your customers. Integration means both plans are developed in tandem, tested together, and updated simultaneously. This creates a seamless response when disaster strikes. Of course, implementing BC and DR isn't without challenges. Budgets are often tight, and executives may be reluctant to invest in plans for events that might happen. Teams may lack training or fail to take drills seriously. Technology changes so quickly that plans can become outdated within months. But there are proven best practices that can make a huge difference. First, involve every department. B, C, and DR aren't just IT issues, they're business-wide priorities. Second, run simulations and drills at least once a year, preferably more often. Third, leverage cloud-based solutions for greater flexibility and scalability. And fourth, review and update your plans regularly, especially after major organizational changes or incidents. Business disruptions are inevitable. The companies that survive and thrive are those that prepare for them in advance. Business continuity and disaster recovery are not just technical documents to be filed away. They are living strategies that require commitment, investment, and regular testing. When the unexpected happens, and it will, having a tested, integrated BC and DR plan can mean the difference between a temporary setback and a permanent shutdown. Remember, survival in business is not a matter of luck. It's the result of careful, deliberate planning.